Welcome, everybody, on this day on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and today we're going to talk about February the 25th, 1964, when Cassius Clay stepped into the ring and beat Sonny Liston in one of the biggest upsets in heavyweight boxing history. Now, on February the 25th, 1964, the young upstart Cassius Clay stepped into the ring in Miami Beach, Florida, to take on Sonny Liston for the heavyweight championship of the world. The fight took place just 3 months after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and like the Kennedy assassination, it has sparked many theories about what really happened. Today, we're going to look at some of the myths that surround it, what the truth is, and Cassius Clay went into the fight undefeated. But as a 7-1 underdog, which was no surprise, Sonny Liston had won the title with a devastating knockout of Floyd Patterson, and just a year later, he had repeated the victory in the same manner. In Clay's 2 previous fights leading up to this title shot, he won a very close decision over Doug Jones, who was he was a smaller heavyweight, really quick. He gave Ali all kind of trouble. A lot of people thought Jones had actually beat Clay. Sorry, I said Ali there. And stopped Henry Cooper on cuts. Now, in the Cooper fight, of course, Clay was dropped by a left hook thrown by Henry. And if the bell had not rung just as he got up, who knows what would have happened. Now, neither of those 2 opponents would ever be confused with Sonny Liston. The Big Bear was considered one of the greatest heavyweights of all time by that point. He had all this mythical quality that Mike Tyson and George Foreman would later have. And there were some sports writers who not only didn't give Cassius a chance, they feared he could actually be killed by Sonny. But then the unthinkable happened. Cassius Clay shook up the world when Liston quit while sitting on his stool after the 6th round. This was stunning, and immediately the cries of the fight being a fix rang out. How on earth could this loudmouth 22-year-old kid have made the unbeatable Sonny Liston give up the title by quitting? You have to remember, Liston was not only the heavyweight champion, but also the scariest and meanest man on the planet. His awesome power and baleful stare sent chills down the spines of not only his opponents, but of most anybody that was in his presence. To the public in 1964, this outcome did not make sense. Why would Sonny Liston quit and give up the most valuable prize in all of sports? Nobody could know for sure, and Sonny wasn't talking at her to say he hurt his shoulder. One theory has it that Liston had bet a huge amount of money on himself and had planned to lose a 15-round decision to Clay, but when it appeared Clay was going to quit after the 5th round, Liston figured he'd better hang it up first or he was going to lose his bet. Liston also knew there was a clause calling for a rematch in the event he lost. That myth is a myth, or that theory is a myth. It seems unlikely, I think, that Liston would have wagered enough money on himself that would have benefited him more than being the heavyweight champion. Perhaps the mob had gotten to him and pressured him to quit. That's possible, too. But it doesn't explain one thing: the reason why Clay wanted to quit. After the 4th round, Cassius came back to his corner and complained to his trainer, Angelo Dundee, that he had something in his eyes that was burning and he couldn't see. He told Angelo to cut off the gloves. Dundee washed his eyes out and pushed Clay out for the 5th round. Clay, still not able to see, got on his bicycle and danced around the ring, keeping his distance from Sonny. Sonny couldn't or wouldn't lay a glove on him. Cassius survived a round, and in the 5th, he was back on track and hitting Sonny with beautiful left jabs that were causing Liston's face to swell. The fact that Sonny's corner may have put a substance on the champion's glove should dispel the theory that Liston went into the fight planning to lose. Now, I've spoke to many boxing historians, and there was one boxing historian by the name of Mike Silver who wrote a very good article about the controversy over the gloves entitled Foul Play in Philly, where he compares what happened in Miami in 1964 to a similar situation that occurred when Rocky Marciano was fighting Jersey Joe Walcott for the title. Marciano was also blinded for a number of rounds during that fight. Rocky was always convinced Walcott's cornerman had put a substance on his gloves. It is also believed that the same thing happened when Liston fought Eddie Machen. It is called juicing the gloves, so to speak. Now, when you look, I think that it proves that Liston probably didn't throw the fight. The only question here would be, what if the people in Liston's corner didn't know Sonny was throwing the fight? And this would kind of be like the Kennedy assassination's lone gunman theory. Liston could have made a deal on his own with the mob, And the less people knew about such a deal, the less likely it would be found out. Knowing Sonny's background, that is very plausible. And another post here is that Liston quit because he had been threatened by the black Muslims, and he feared he would be shot if he won. This one could be listed as the, grassy knoll theory, where a gunman is hiding somewhere in the crowd, awaiting to assassinate Sonny if things don't turn out as planned. Again, given Sonny's background dealing with mobsters and the mystery surrounding his death less than a decade later, this is also at least somewhat believable. So what do I think happened? Yeah, I used to believe all these theories at different times, but I no longer agree with that. I mean, the way the fight was going, I doubt Liston could have made it a full 15 rounds. He was tiring, swelling under his left eye was getting worse. Liston had only a total of less than 6 rounds of action in the ring since 1961 because of the 2 first-round knockouts over Patterson. And so that was less than 2 rounds over the previous 3 years. He was also confident he could easily beat Clay, so he didn't train hard for the fight. Meanwhile, Cassius Clay was in superb shape, and he had been very active. He had 17 fights since 1961 and a total of 91 rounds of action. Quite a difference. Now, Clay was also pumped for this fight, while Liston wasn't. Clay's confidence, or possibly fear, put all of his defensive mechanisms on high alert. His adrenaline was flowing, and that made his already amazing reflexes all that much sharper. Put this all together, the outcome does not seem as implausible as many believed. Sonny was right for the taking that night, and Clay had the tools to do it. So, would we want to talk about maybe a conspiracy? Maybe we'll save that for when we do the Ali Liston 2 rematch, because a lot of things happen there. But the one thing I do know is when you look at the next 15 years of Muhammad Ali's career, there is no doubt in my mind, and should be no doubt in anybody else's mind, Sonny Liston on his best day could have never beaten Cassius Clay. Cassius Clay from 1961 to 1967, 68 was the greatest heavyweight that ever lived. Now, sometimes he'd fight down to his competition. He'd let a guy go 12 or 13 rounds or even a distance and just play with him. I still think to this day, as the old Deontay Wilder would say, to this day, if Ali would have went out and went after everybody, there's a good chance nobody even goes to distance with him from 1960 to 1968. Ali was a showman. He was the greatest thing that ever happened to boxing. And on this day, February the 25th, 1964, Cassius Clay became the heavyweight champion of the world. All right, guys, you can hear us on this day every day around this time. Make sure you follow me at Grueling Truth on Twitter. Check out all of our shows and articles on thegruelingtruth.com. So for now, this has been Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.